This election in November is going to determine so many things about our future. And it's going to be about literally our health and whether we live or die. It's going to be about the state of our economy and whether we have a job and are treated with dignity or not.
Where's Kamala Harris on the Joe Biden allegations? Anyone want to ask her about that? Oh, no, that's right. She's still trying to get a vice president nod and get that slot from Biden. So she's not going to say anything about it other than she believes Joe Biden. So are they calling? Let's remember all the things that they did to people like me and others who were defending Kavanaugh, who was manifestly innocent. It was obvious. Didn't do anything. Can't even prove. When you can't prove that you even knew the year that you say something happened or that you even met the person in question, you're somebody who has emotional problems and should not be listened to when a highly politicized case like this comes forward, as it did against Kavanaugh. Against Biden, this all adds up. What a guy who's a self-important, narcissistic, power-mad senator from the 90s has a young, attractive female staffer that he gets too handsy with. Does that sound implausible to anyone? Blasey Ford's thing about Kavanaugh, who had lived his life as a super nice guy and had never done anything except promote and assist and help women. Look, the story didn't add up. It just never added up. And there were no details, no contemporaneous. And the other two people came forward as, Julie Swetnick's a liar. She's just a liar. Crazy person and a liar. And the other woman, I think, was, also a little bit deluded. Well, was her name? Deborah Ramirez. But Blasey Ford was the one. Oh, and they worked so hard. She was the one who also said she couldn't fly. And then they found out that because they were trying to delay and set the pieces up to make sure that she'd have the best testimony possible against Kavanaugh, it turned out that she lied about that. That's a weird thing to lie about before you're going to testify in front of the whole country and try to ruin a man's life. All because you want some psycho lib to be on the Supreme Court to pretend that abortion is a constitutional right, which it is clearly, manifestly not. So here we are now with a much more credible set of, or much more credible allegation against Joe Biden, and there's just nothing. And this is the Democratic Party that tells you that they're better, they're honorable. These are the same Democrats who have been saying that Trump lies and lies and lies, is so terrible, so awful, and then this is what they offer up? I mean, there's a part of it that just wants to look at them and say, you guys are not, you're not serious, right? You don't really think that this is acceptable, that Joe Biden is this great opportunity for America. You can't really believe that. I mean, I refuse to think that that's something they really believe, but I guess they are going to pretend. Oh, there's another female politician who wants a shot at being Biden's vice president. Maybe Gillibrand thinks that she should be the vice president. I'm sure that that's crossed her mind. But there's Stacey Abrams out there who's openly lobbying for this in a way where she's like telling Joe Biden, nice presidential campaign you have there. It'd be a shame if some social justice came after it. You know what I'm saying? You better make me VP or else. That's really been the attitude that you've been seeing. But here's Stacey Abrams when she was asked about the Biden allegations, the sexual assault allegations, and here's what she said. Play 14.
Biden's campaign says untrue, never happened. Is this a credible allegation?
I believe that women deserve to be heard, and I believe that they need to be listened to. But I also believe that those allegations have to be investigated by credible sources. The New York Times did a deep investigation, and they found that the accusation was not credible. I believe Joe Biden. I believe that he is a person who has demonstrated that his love of family, his love of our community has been made perfectly clear through his work as a congressional leader and as an American leader. I know Joe Biden, and I think that he is telling the truth and that this did not happen.
Lies, lies, and lies. The New York Times did not come to the conclusion that the allegation was not credible. They just can't tell you definitively whether or not that it happened. And even if they did say that it was not credible, that's laughable. Of course it's credible. There's nothing to disprove it, and everything about it lines up. It is entirely plausible, and something that is entirely plausible when you have a named accuser, given the circumstances of what we know of their working relationship at the time, as well as Joe Biden's propensity to be handsy and gross with women in general. That's called credible. I don't remember the year. I don't remember where it was. I don't remember how I got there. Nobody will tell that this actually happened. I didn't tell anyone at the time. And I put 2 doors on my house because it still freaked me out decades later. And also I can't fly. Just kidding. Except when I go on vacation, I can fly. So I guess I will fly. That was Blasey Ford against Kavanaugh. Was that that was credible, huh? Oh, we all see what's going on here. Just remember it. You were right. I was right. We were right about Kavanaugh and what happened there. And also the recognition that Me Too would be used as a political weapon against the right and abandoned the moment that it could be used against the left. We called it because we know who these people are. They don't have internal principle. They don't have a moral compass. It is all just whatever they need for power. Whatever they have to do, they will do. And that's what we're seeing here. Oh, yes, women have a right to be heard. Try saying that if you're a Republican and shut down allegations of sexual assault against you. Women just have a right to be heard, not to be believed. Can a joke on Twitter get you dragged in front of the administrative state? Well, I wouldn't be asking the question if it wasn't obviously yes, but let's talk to the person who can tell you just what this ordeal is all about. Mr. Ben Domenech joins us now. He is the founder and publisher of The Federalist. You know, thefederalist.com is one of our favorite sites. Mr. Ben, good to have you on, sir.
It's good to be with you, Buck. How are you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm hanging in there, in lockdown in NYC. It's not exactly a great time in the history of the city or the world for that matter, but I'm going to be all right. You're going to be all right. Our audience is going to be all right. Let's tell me first about what happened here, Ben. You made it. Tell folks the story, because I haven't gotten into any of the details. You made a joke on Twitter that upset the libs. It had to do with unions, and now you had to go to court. What happened?
So here's what happened, Buck, and I'll try to keep this brief. Basically, back last year during June, there was a walkout happening at Vox Media, something that I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with as a left-of-center website. And they were, demanding all sorts of different things in the new collective bargaining agreement, including some things that I thought to be pretty crazy. But just as a matter of commenting about it on Twitter, I made a joke that amounts to FYI to the Federalist, the organization I run. The next one of you tries to unionize, I'll send you back to the salt mines. Now, this is obviously a joke. I do not now own a salt mine. I have not ruled it out as future purchase. In fact, I think that they could be, pretty productive in terms of people need salt. But it's also one of these things where, the left always wants to use any opportunity to weaponize the bureaucratic state, the administrative state, against people who they don't like. And in this instance, a leftist writer, Matt Brunig, who's married to, at that time, a writer at the Washington Post, now a writer at the New York Times, took umbrage with it and filed a labor complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, one that was also filed by another attorney in Massachusetts. Neither of these men have ever worked with us, have any relationship with us, have ever been an employee or a contractor at the Federalist. But under the National Labor Relations Board's perspective on things, they believe that anyone anywhere can file any kind of complaint along these lines, and they investigate it at taxpayer expense. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. It basically means they have the power, subpoena power and other power over you, that they can use to try to force you to do whatever they want you to do. In this instance, they attempted to subpoena all email communications between staff on any matters, going back quite a bit, looking not just at it wasn't just a request about benefits or negotiations or anything along those lines. It was a subpoena that applied to all of our reporting, all of our editorial conversations and the like, a huge invasion of our First Amendment rights as a publication. My own employees, of course, thought this all was just a giant joke. They couldn't believe it was something that was actually happening. They were joking about, making shirts or selling branded Federalist salt shakers or things of that nature, which we might still do.
I'd buy one.
Yes. Well, thank you. You'll definitely get the first model when we have them come in. And thankfully at this point, I mean, I kind of looked around and was like, wow, this is incredible. They can subpoena my employees to come and testify in New York, a state that they don't live in and that we don't have an office in. They can force them to come. They can make them pay the expense. They would have to hire their own lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. And thankfully, in this instance, I found an organization, a small group of lawyers who basically just work on these types of cases, the New Civil Liberties Alliance, which is an excellent little organization stood up by a fellow named Philip Hamburger, who will be familiar to anybody who reads about First Amendment cases and cases involving the bureaucratic and administrative state. And they offered to come in and really help us fight this battle against these bureaucrats who really don't care that none of my employees were offended by this, that none of them saw it as a threat against their ability to unionize. And that's something that the judge and eventually the administrative law judge ruled in the past couple weeks that in fact it's their opinions and even their affidavits filed saying that they weren't offended don't matter, that that's irrelevant. And that even in this case, you can't say that this was a joke. It has to be interpreted as a serious threat. Now, I'll tell you, Buck, the truth is I could have settled this for nothing. I mean, there's no threat to my livelihood. They don't have in a case like this, for something as small as this, they would just compel my speech. They would force me to. They proposed deleting the tweet and then posting information about the ability of my employees to unionize, which, as informed people, they're well aware of. And that was something that, of course, I could easily do to make this go away. But the reason that I decided not to is to prove a point, which is that I don't think that most people who are out there in this day and age of social media realize that if someone posted something like this, who, let's just say, owned a series of gas stations or owned a deli or had a small business, and that their neighbor who doesn't like them is offended by it, or their neighbor online, someone who they don't even know, just some random American, can file this type of legally forceful action against them in such a way that it goes after them at taxpayer expense and can frankly, put them out of business just through the expense of having to fight this type of case. And, the bureaucrats in this case, they always assume that you're just going to bend. They were shocked that I didn't take the deal and instead, proceed to fight. And here's the thing, this will go and work its way through the administrative law process, but then we'll get to the real courts where the Constitution actually matters. And I think we'll have a conversation about whether this is something that Congress intended under their creation of the NLRB, whether it's something that ought to continue in terms of the ability of people who have no connection to any organization to file wherever they want. And to compel speech on the part of those whose opinions they just happen to not like.
We're speaking to Ben Domenech, founder of The Federalist. You can go to thefederalist.com. It's one of my favorite sites. His piece in the Wall Street Journal is How My Joke on Twitter Became a Federal Case. He's telling us about it now. Now, Ben, you're saying that you're fighting this on principle, which I can totally appreciate and understand, and you're going to take this into real court. Got to ask you, though, do you have any concerns that somehow, we just saw, in my opinion, a horrible decision from the Supreme Court on New York City gun law, which, it's a conversation we could have another time. But to me, it's just inexcusable what John Roberts did. And it clearly wouldn't stand for, say, abortion rights or something like that. But you seem pretty confident going into court that you'll be okay on this. Any concern that you might get the wrong judge?
Oh, I think that that's absolutely a possibility. I mean, you could end up on the wrong side of this and certainly have to, see the ramifications of that. But from my perspective, that's worth the risk in this scenario where the deck is so stacked in the favor of the bureaucrats currently that I'd like to see this question resolved. And while these courts, behave in their own little area of law where the administrative law judge one day is the person making the argument for the bureaucracy on the other day. And that's a whole world in which the rules effectively don't apply the way that they apply within the traditional court system as we understand it. I think that that's a bad thing. And I think that it's something that ought to be curtailed. And I don't think that the people who brought this case really thought it through in terms of the fact pattern of such a clear misuse of a kind of trollish capacity of the type of bureaucracy that's supposed to look out for workers, as opposed to engaging in something that could, frankly, lead to the organization, if they didn't have the resources that we do and the connections that we do, being bankrupted or putting those workers out of the street without their jobs. And you know what, Buck, I think that this is also an indication of something looking forward to the future. The ability that we have in this day and age to have people drill down and attack small businesses, as we've seen it within primarily the religious freedom aspects of things across the country, via these courts that are essentially carved out and unresponsive to citizens and individuals. I think that's a real danger, and it's something that we need to start looking at in terms of curtailing it for the future, where we're going to have a nation of Karens who are going out there and using the power of these agencies to enlist taxpayer funds and put bureaucrats after people they just happen to not like.
Just one quick one for you, Ben, before we let you go back to fighting the man, or the NLRB man. Did anybody from this administrative agency, when you're sitting there, and I suppose you have legal representation, but you're like, when you say it's a joke, which it clearly is, right? Like, I've joked around before and said, when I used to work at the CI, I'd be like, all right, like, I'm gonna send this person to Gitmo or something, right? Like, you just get angry, and I don't have that authority. I can't do that. It's not gonna happen. You don't, as you pointed out, own a salt mine. You can't send anyone there, and it's clearly a joke. When you say that, though, what is their response?
Well, what I'd say, there are two things. One, as a legal matter, they say, well, that doesn't matter because someone could reasonably take it literally. Which is, to me, just a complete misunderstanding of that standard historically and the way that courts have used it in the past. In other words, it eliminates any context for the fact, maybe he does own a salt mine or something along that line. But the other thing is, and this is something I think we need to understand about the folks who are involved in this, these are bureaucrats who take everything literally. They are humorless. They have no concept that this is a joke. And it makes me really wonder, how familiar they are with just what Twitter is. Twitter is just a place for snark and humor and all types of comments within this area. And to your point, I mean, imagine if someone were to come after you for saying, here's this ex-government employee saying he wants to send me to Gitmo. I'm scared.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's very much.
I mean, I was saying it to my little sister's boyfriends for years. I hope I can't can't get sued for it. It's crazy.
Well, look, here's what I'll say. I think this is a fight worth having because it's so clear cut, and because we have the resources and the friendships in order to make this fight where other people couldn't. And I hope that ultimately this leads to some real questions that people ask about the appropriateness of empowering bureaucrats with this type of unrestricted ability to invade the lives of people across the country based just on the fact that they have differences in politics. I think that's very dangerous.
Ben Domenech, everybody, founder of the Federalist. Ben, stay in the fight, man. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you, Buck. I will.
Oh, before we get to roll call, a story here out of New York that's gotten a lot of attention. It is trending on Twitter and on social media. De Blasio breaks up rabbi's funeral and lashes out over virus distancing. After overseeing the dispersal of hundreds of Hasidic mourners in Brooklyn, Mayor Bill de Blasio called the gathering absolutely unacceptable. And he warned, quote, the Jewish community and all communities that any violation of social distancing guidelines can lead to a summons or arrest. Quote, something absolutely unacceptable happened in Williamsburg tonight, a large funeral gathering in the middle of this pandemic. This is Mayor de Blasio. When I heard, I went there myself to ensure the crowd was dispersed, and what I saw will not be tolerated so long as we are fighting the coronavirus. End quote. Producer Mark, I would like you to weigh in on this as a fellow American and as a fellow New Yorker and as a Jewish New Yorker. What say you, producer? Well, a New Jerseyan, but it's New York. Yes. Come on.
I grew up in New York.
Right, you're from New York. What say you about this situation, and why is it trending on social media?
Well, I think because de Blasio tweeted something basically targeting, naming Jews. So that's why everyone's mad at him right now. And, I mean, first of all, I want to point out that de Blasio does one thing great, uniting everyone in hating him. and I hate him too. I think what he was trying to say is the Hasidic Jews, the ultra-Orthodox Jews, they don't listen to anybody. So why would you tweet that? They're not on Twitter. They don't use social media. They don't use technology. So he's even dumber than we think.
I don't think you're going to reach the Hasidic community well on Twitter. I think that's probably true. I know enough to know that that's the case.
Yeah, so if you're trying to reach out to them, doing it on Twitter is a bad job, and basically you just angered all Jewish people by tweeting that because he targeted just Jewish people, as if there weren't Christians meeting on Easter in New York, as if Muslims don't unite, aren't doing it. Every religion is doing this right now to kind of push back on the social distancing stuff. So why are you targeting just the Jewish people?
All right, there you have it. Producer Mark weighing in. Let's get to a roll call. Oh, remember, folks, bucksexton.com, a fantastic website. And if you have not already, youtube.com/bucksexton. We have a YouTube channel. So if you have not yet seen some of our long-form interviews that we've done, we have a great one with James Altucher. We had the Motor City Madman on recently, Ted Nugent. We've had, who else have we done long? Jack Carr. We've done these long-form interviews. You got to check them out. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/bucksexton, and also bucksexton.com. Put that on your bookmarks. If enough of you start bookmarking it, I will just start writing, if not bi-weekly, weekly, for the website. That's right, baby. We're going to start using bucksexton.com for exclusive written content. And I've even talked to the Snow Princess about doing some cooking videos with me because she's a fantastic cook. I'm like decent. Like producer Mark would eat my food and be like, I cannot complain about this because it's good. Her food, the two of us would sit there and be like, this is amazing. So
yeah, I would just ask you why you haven't married her yet.
Yeah, working
just make
on
those jokes.
I'm working on it.
I know.
I'm working on it. She made cacio e pepe last night. You like Italian, right?
Yeah. What in the world is that?
You don't know cacio e pepe?
No.
It's like spaghetti in the pecorino romano cheese sauce with pepper.
Yeah, I'm sold.
Yeah, it's like fancy. She's explaining to me it's fancy Italian macaroni, basically. Like it's a fancy Italian macaroni and cheese, but it's with spaghetti instead of whatever you call the macaroni. But yeah, it's really really good. So yeah, no, we'll make it happen. You and Mrs. Producer Mark will have you guys over when we're not under threat of De Blasio arresting us for socializing. Then we can make you guys.
Am I under extra threat now? I don't understand.
Oh, you mean that's De Blasio's he's going after certain people a little more than others, it seems. I don't know. I leave that to the mayor's office. He's not doing himself any favors. You're right, by the way, as a personality contest thing, or as a popularity contest rather, De Blasio, it's remarkable that this guy is the mayor of New York City. I will tell you this. I know crazy libs of all kinds. I know them from work. I know them personally. I have never heard a person make a case for Bill de Blasio being anything other than terrible. Never. I've never met a human being who's like, I think Bill de Blasio does a really good job. And that's not, I know libs who love Pelosi, yes, queen, they think she's amazing. I know libs who, they love Adam Schiff. They, name your odious Democrat. And I can think of people that think that they're wonderful. And I know them. I've never, and just, it's an anecdote I know, but I mean, do you know anybody?
No, I've never met one human being who likes Bill de Blasio.
And yet he's the mayor.
And he wanted to run for president.
How is it even possible? And he ran for president.
He really legitimately thought he was going to win the presidency.
Oh, my gosh. It's just stunning. All right. Anyway. All right. Roll call. Remember, bucksexton.com and also youtube.com/bucksexton. Want to get as much digital Team Buck action going as we possibly can. Just more ways for us all to keep in touch, more content, and more ways to keep you safe and warm at night. And with that in mind, Mark writes in, hey, Buck, producer Mark, you and Tallulah keep me safe and warm at night. Thank you so much. I live in the foothills of Colorado. My wife and I own a small one-chair hair salon. Our governor laid out a reopening plan set to start today, April 27th. My wife started booking clients, and we were very optimistic about getting back to normal. Then on Friday, Denver County announced the stay-at-home order was to remain in effect till May 8th. Then our county quickly followed suit on Friday. As a former sheriff's deputy, I constantly question the constitutionality of all this. How can a county health official tell us our legal small business is now illegal to operate without any subsidy and without suspending rent and mortgages? Keep up the good work, boys. You're the highlight and sanity of my daily routine. Well, Mark, that's really high praise, and we appreciate that. It's very kind of you, and that's why we keep doing what we do here every day. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As for the constitutionality of this and the capricious nature of the state authorities that are pushing these shutdowns, look, I can't tell you that this is anything other than what it is, which is bad, and it's overreach, and it's a problem. So, but thank you for listening out in the foothills of Colorado. We appreciate it. Andrew. Oh, one more note, guys. When you write in, if you listen on one of our affiliate stations, if you don't mind, please do write in. If you listen on, WoWo in Fort Wayne, Indiana, or KLBJ in Austin, or Freedom 93.7 in Denver, or our wonderful new affiliate in San Diego, or our affiliate up in, you name it. I mean, wherever we are and you're listening, please do. WCBM Baltimore. Got to give Baltimore a shout out. We do, by the way, I want to say thank you to all the people who listen on WCBM Baltimore, because we've been fantastic with the numbers there. A lot of you are still listening. A lot of you are tuning in, and it means a lot. That's a top 50 market for us. And Mark and I extend you our thanks for making sure that we are resonating with the great people of Baltimore and the surrounding area. So yeah, please do let us know what station you listen on, if you listen on a station. That's a helpful thing for us. Andrew, Buck, greetings from Minnesota. Yesterday in roll call, you questioned the idea of people voluntarily not working affecting more than the restaurant industry. Did I? I can tell you that I don't remember doing that. I can tell you that my immediate neighbors are two contractors and a husband, wife, daughter team who run an eye care clinic. The contractors have projects scheduled and our work restrictions are now lifted, but their workers make more by claiming unemployment. The eye care people have complained of their employees getting coached by liberal employees on how to make the most of the benefit system, and it's hanging the clinic out to dry. One of their employees told them to take Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf's advice and just pay your employees more if management wants them to come back to work. When Minnesotans are being that rude to each other, things are getting weird out there. Yeah, Andrew, thank you for the heads up on this. That makes sense to me that there would be other businesses too, because the Paycheck Protection Program is not just for restaurants. So there must be other businesses where the financial incentive is now stronger to stay home than it is to work. And that's clearly counterproductive for those of us who want to get the economy up and running again. So thank you for bringing me that sense of what's going on in Minnesota. It is true. Minnesotans are so nice. They're such nice people. Minnesotans are so nice. They're a bunch of, I wonder have they ever done a study of how would you even gauge this? But I'm curious what the nicest state is. Like if I ask you, producer Mark, what state is when I say the nicest, the friendliest? Like strangers are the friendliest to you in what state? What would you say? It's definitely not New York or New Jersey. We know that.
I will say about New Yorkers, they are kind to each other sometimes. Like when something's wrong, we come together.
I was going to say, we come through for each other when it counts, right? Like New Yorkers, we do our thing, but we'll see something wrong going down, or we'll see somebody who's in need, and New Yorkers will go to the mat for each other when it counts. But we're not like, oh, hey, how's your day? Oh, my day's fine. That's not our way. So where do you find? And by the way, I think that's an astute observation you have, and I totally agree with you about that. That we, New Yorkers will surprise people by what they're willing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen stuff go on in this city. And I'm just like, that's how we do it here. Like when someone is in an accident or something. Now you could say this is true everywhere, but New Yorkers really go to extreme lengths. I can't tell you how many people I've seen help mothers carry very heavy strollers down narrow, slippery subway stairs, which sounds like it's not a big deal. But let me tell you something. As somebody who has, humble brag, carried a few strollers for strangers with the kid in the stroller because there's a baby. So you got someone else's baby that you're kind of now responsible for the safety of. You're trying not to fall down the stairs and crack your skull open, and you're hoping you don't throw your back out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen that happen as well. I don't really help because I would fall with the stroller, so that caused two problems. But there is a website called Big 7 Travel, and it says Minnesota is the friendliest state, followed by Tennessee.
I was going to say people would usually think it's Minnesota.
Would you like to know where New York is?
Everyone's real friendly. Where's New York?
50th.
Oof. Yeah, people were when I was in Nashville, people were very nice in Tennessee. It is true. People are friendlier in the South. I mean, when I go down to the Carolinas or to Georgia, everyone's so nice. Texas, people are like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "You actually care, don't you?" You're like, "Hey, I hope this stranger's having a good day."
I think why New York gets a bad rap, if you see a tourist, and I'm sure you're guilty of it as I am, if they stop in the middle of the sidewalk and to take a picture or something stupid, you shove them a little.
We have rules here.
Yeah.
And you got to know the rule. The rules are you walk fast or you get out of the way.
Yeah.
You don't take too much time when you're ordering food because you look at the menu before you get to the front of the line. You know, we have rules. That's the thing. You know, we're New Yorkers are on a time crunch, so it seems like we're rude when really we're just trying to move fast, which sometimes makes us rude.
Yeah, and when tourists get in our way, we don't like it.
I also feel like there's a sort of understood language. Like sometimes if someone accelerates toward you in New York and you're in the crosswalk, this is when life was normal and there were cars driving around, you flip them the bird and they honk at you and it's like, eh, and you're not even really mad at them. But that's just the way we communicate here.
Oh, I used to get into right by our old building before we moved downtown. There was like a stop sign in the middle of the street for pedestrians to go by. So many taxis wouldn't stop and almost hit me. I swear I almost came to blows with a couple taxi drivers. So that does happen.
But this is like you throw them the one finger salute, they honk at you, you go about your merry day, and you kind of get a little stressed out. I don't know. It's just the way it is here. It's kind of
it's called a New York hello.
Yeah, that's how we do it. It's different in other places. In Minnesota, you know what they call a hello? A hello. All right, more roll call here. Willis writes in, good call on the Waco series. Just started it last night. Keep the suggestions coming. All right, man. Willis, first of all, I'm glad you enjoy the Waco series. I think it's excellent. My suggestions for you right now for things to watch that are out there. Watch and this one's from producer Mark, The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN. Fantastic. The Last Kingdom season 4. If you have seen the other seasons, you need to watch this one. If you haven't seen The Last Kingdom on Netflix, highly recommend it. It's like Vikings, but I think even a little better than the show Vikings. So The Last Kingdom, Waco, as I've mentioned to you, is it's gripping. It's so well done, and it's an excellent. Producer Mark gave us The Last Dance. Do you have another rec for producer Mark other than the creek the creek that shall not be named because we can't say it on air?
Yes, I'll say Silicon Valley. I'm only 3 seasons in, but I love it so far.
Very good show. I knew that one would be right up your alley. I mean, I think Silicon Valley is excellent. So you got a bunch of recs there. Oh, and if you want something to watch with the missus, The Crown is a show that the dudes and the ladies can watch together and I think equally enjoy. It's a very good show for what it is. A little understated, a little bit. It can be a little slow, but it's the acting, the writing is excellent. The costuming and sets are cinematic quality. You'll see what I mean. And you watch it with the wife, she'll be like, "Oh, look at he's kind of a sensitive, he's a sophisticated fellow, isn't he? He likes to watch The Crown, drink tea, eat crumpets." All right, John. Buck, I'm a political science major. Just finished a class called Research and Writing in Poli-Sci. We learned a lot about polling and how to account for influences in a sample group. That got me thinking about the odds of liberal COVID patients who are prescribed hydroxychloroquine and not taking it since the drug has been politicized. However, I doubt that if that were happening, it would be a high enough number of patients to impact the results. What do you think? John, I don't think that anybody who is advised by their doctor when their life is really on the line to take a drug like hydroxychloroquine would say no because of the politics. But then again, people are nuts. So I don't have a good read on this. I'm not seeing the Matrix on this one. I don't have a good read on this one. As for hydroxychloroquine, so far, the belief has really switched now based on what doctors have seen. This is not a belief that comes out of nowhere, that it might be best as either early intervention to prevent the virus from replicating or as just a straight up prophylactic against the virus establishing an infection. William, greetings, Buck and Mark. It seems clear that the only metrics the Democrats, the media, when it comes to opening the country is after the election, or at least to wait until they think they have sunk Trump's chances. They want the economic recovery to come under their guidance so they can claim credit for saving the country. Open the country! Shields high. Yeah. So you're correct about a lot of politics at play here and the slow nature of reopening the country that has to do with those politics for the left. So we'll have to see how this continues. This fight is ongoing, and we will need our shields high, because this is going to get ugly. It's going to get very ugly. I'm already seeing some guy got arrested in North Carolina. This just broke today because he opened his tattoo parlor. Get ready for more of that. More non-compliance. It's going to happen. Mark writes, a lot of Marks writing in. Producer Mark, were you bored last night? Buck, producer Mark, Trader Joe's sells crumpets, same section as English muffins. Okay, good to know. But are they gluten-free? That's going to be the show for today, everybody. Back tomorrow, same time and place. Shields high.